If I had $1 million, the first thing I probably would buy would be equipment to create a studio in the house.
I would probably spend on maybe some iTunes music.
I would buy a bunch of clothes and music.
New clothes.
The first thing I would do with $1 million would probably be to buy my dad a house far, far away from my own.
A new house.
I'd probably buy a big house.
I've always said if I won the lottery or anything, I'd give half to a charity or something, and then I'd spend the rest on a car.
On a $500,000 car?
The car I want is very expensive.
Probably a TV or a laptop.
The wise thing to do would be
Nope, forget the wise thing.
a pony farm, a Camaro. I'd buy a college. I would buy a college. That way I could get admission for free. Don't laugh
I
at
think if
me.
you could buy a college, you wouldn't have to go to college.
So what would you do with $1 million? I know what we'd all probably say in a room like this. We'd all want to say that we would find some charity or a church to give it to, or we'd give it to someone who really needed it. And I hope that that would be true. But really, when you have that money in your hands, what do? When you have the cold hard cash in your hands, is it that easy to give it away? I once heard someone say, all that money and fame do is make you more of who you already are. And I think that's probably true. We all want to think that we will become a generous person when we have money. But the question is, are we generous people now? I mean, is it money that makes a person generous? No. Generosity doesn't come from money. It comes from your heart. And the same is true for greed. If I'm greedy and I want to keep everything to myself when I don't have anything, won't I be the same when I have a lot of money? Because it's coming from our heart, right? Maybe the reason mo money equals mo problems isn't because money makes us greedy, but because we're already greedy. But let's stop listening to Oprah and Biggie and see what Jesus has to say in Luke 12:15. Then he said, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. You see, there's more than one kind of greed. You may not think you're greedy, but that's probably because you're comparing yourself to someone else. You think greed is just this one thing, this thing where you are stingy and you keep all your money to yourself. But there are all kinds of greed, and we have to guard our heart against all of them. Greed is when you think that life is about getting as much as you can. Greed is when you think, I'll die if I don't have that. Greed is when you think, I know I have the iPhone 4 and it works, but I don't have the iPhone 4S. I need the iPhone 4S. Greed is when you look through your closet and you found an article of clothing you forgot that you even owned. Greed is needing to always be the first to see the new movie or always needing to be the first to do something. And greed is even more than all of that. We have to guard our heart against all of it. Why? Because it turns us into a person that becomes more obsessed with more and more and more. We become a person who cares more about stuff than about people. And sure, right now it might not feel like it's a big deal because you don't have any money or any responsibility. But it's not money and responsibility that make you greedy. It's money and responsibility that show the fact that you're greedy. When you get older, you'll want to be able to help out someone when they need help. But when you're greedy, you'll be so tied down to your stuff that you can't help. So how do we defeat greed in our hearts? We become generous. We choose to regularly sacrifice what we want to give it to someone else. Now, I know what argument is about to be had in almost every single group at our church. I don't get an allowance, or I can't get a job, so I can't give. Really? So you don't have any video games or any clothes that have been purchased in the last 3 months? You haven't gone to the movies or gone out to eat with your friends, or your parents haven't bought you anything you asked for recently? What's funny to me is that we can be really creative when we want to get something for ourselves. We can come up with all the excuses and the reasons why we need it, and we can come up with a plan for how we can earn it when it's for us. But when we need to give up something we want in order to learn to be generous, well, I'm out of ideas. And just in case you think I don't have any ideas for you, here you go. Why don't you choose to give up going to the movies and use the money your parents would have given you for that to give to the church? Why don't you give up some time on the weekends to do yard work or babysit so you can get money to give to someone else? Why don't you actually get a job? See, there are plenty of creative ways to start being generous. You just have to want to give. You have to develop a generous heart. So when you finally do have money, you'll continue to be generous, or you can continue to only care about getting more stuff and make your life about all that. It's up to you.